32. Verse 9. Verses 9 to 15.
第9节到第15节。
Who wants to read? Say amen.
接下来读一下15节，第9节到第15节，你好读就是阿曼。
阿门。我读。还有谁想读吧？让谁读，我就不读。
Any takers?
您读吧。
好，奉主耶稣的名。以赛亚书32章，反正有人说32章。好，以赛亚书，奉主耶稣的名读以赛亚书32章第9节到多少节？20节。
15节。
15节。安逸的妇女啊，我的声音；无虑的女子啊，侧耳听我的言语。无虑的女子啊，再过1年多必受骚扰，因为无葡萄可摘，无果子可收。安逸的妇女啊，要战惊；无虑的女子啊，要受骚扰，脱去衣服，湿着身体，腰束麻布。他们必为美好的田地和多结果的葡萄树捶胸哀哭。荆棘棘藜必长在我百姓的地上，又长在欢乐的城中和一切快乐的房屋上，因为宫殿必被撇下，多民的城必被遗弃，山岗望楼永为洞穴，做野驴所喜悦的，为羊群的草场。等到圣灵从上浇灌我们，旷野就变为肥田，肥田看如树林。阿们。
阿们。
We've been talking about God's kingdom of righteousness.
我们这里讲的是神国度的这种公义。
Isaiah talks about the coming trouble to Jerusalem and the restoration.
以赛亚在这里讲的是来的耶路撒冷的那种就有点像坏似的，但是又讲到他们的那种复兴。
And here in verse 9, he talks about the women specifically.
在这里第9节，他主要讲的是妇女。
He says, listen up. Listen carefully.
他说你们要起来听，他说你们要仔细的听。
I'm not talking to all the women.
我不是对所有的妇女说。
I'm talking to those who are complacent.
我是对那些安逸的妇女们说。
He says, rise up and listen to me.
他说你要起来听我的声音。
Most complacent people are taking their ease, lying on a couch, lying in bed.
那种安逸的人都是非常那种轻松的，然后经常躺在沙发上，躺在床上。
Complacent women stay in bed until maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning.
这些安逸的人经常躺在床上到早上10点或11点。
They don't have to get up early in the morning.
他们不需要早上早起。
If they have children, they have nannies to take care of that.
如果他们有孩子的话，他们有保姆会照顾。
He says, rise up and listen to me.
他说起来听我的声音。
These are the daughters who feel secure.
这是无力的女子。
Listen to what I have to say.
侧耳听我的言语。
Ching, ching, ching. Listen carefully, gently.
倾听仔细的听。
Okay. I have an older sister. She slept late every day.
我有一个姐姐，她每天睡都很晚。
She knew if she was involved, somebody would wake her up.
她说如果she was involved.
if she was going to be involved, somebody would wake her up.
如果他要是参与在其中的话，有人会叫醒他。
Her friends would call her on the phone and say, "Wake up, wake up."
如果他有任何事情的话，别人都会把他给他叫他，比如说他朋友早上会给他打电话。
Or Mama would say, "It's time to wake up. Remember what you're doing today."
或者我妈就会说，现在该起床了，你要知道你还要做事情。
I was the number 2 child.
我是家里排行老2的。
I got up early because I did not want to miss anything.
我每天起得都很早，因为我不想我落掉什么东西。
So the daughters feel secure, like my older sister did.
所以这个无虑的这些女子就感觉很安全的这个就像我的姐姐一样。
If you have an older sister, who feels more secure, you or your older sister?
如果你有姐姐的话，你们是谁感觉到就是更无虑一些？是你还是姐？
The older sister is always more secure.
那一般都是姐姐会更加无虑一些。
So God is speaking to the complacent women and to the young, secure women.
那神这里对的是那些安逸的妇女说的，和对那些是年轻的感觉到无虑的这些女子说的。
These words don't apply to you hardworking women whose work is never done.
这些那个词呢，这些话不适用就是一直非常勤劳工作的这些妇女的，因为她们的工作永远都做不完。
You hardworking women are going to be ready for anything.
你们这么认真工作、辛苦工作的人，是做任何事情都是准备好的。
I remember talking to the father of the woman I married who died of cancer 6 years ago.
我还记得，我跟就是当时我的太太因癌症6年前离世的，我的太太她的父亲跟我的岳父讲话的时候，
He told me, if you're going to get married, marry a girl from Kentucky.
就说如果你要结婚的话，一定要和一个来自肯塔基州的一个女孩子结婚。
I said, why should I do that?
我说为什么？
He says, because no matter how bad it gets, she has already seen worse and
他说
survived.
不管有多么差，因为他说不管是怎么样，他们不管什么样的环境，他们以前经历过，就是比这个更惨的，所以但他们也可以存活下来。
Hardworking men and women will survive anything.
努力工作的男的和女的，在任何时候都可以很好的生存。
He speaks a warning to the complacent women and to the ones that feel secure that nothing will happen to them.
他是对那些感觉安逸。
In a little more than 1 year,
对
you who feel secure will tremble. Verse 10.
他是对安逸的妇女说，和那些无虑的妇女说，而且还说，再过1年你们就会必受骚扰。
The grape harvest is going to fail.
无葡萄可摘。
The harvest of fruit is not going to come.
没有收割的东西。
No grapes, no wine.
没有葡萄就没有酒。
And you know what happens when the wine runs out.
你知道当那个酒都喝没的时候会啥样？
When there's no wine, happy people get unhappy.
当没有酒的话，那些高兴人变得不高兴了。
And unhappy, sober drunks are hard to deal with.
不高兴的、清醒的、没有酒喝的那些酒鬼是最难处理的这些人。
Complacent women and those who feel secure, you better take off all your pretty clothes.
那些安逸的妇女和那些无虑的妇女要脱去衣服。
And dress up in raggedy clothes. Sackcloth.
腰束麻布。
Put on the clothes you wear for mourning when somebody has died.
就是把你早上就是要去参加某个丧礼的那些衣服穿上。
You can cry your heart out because the pleasant fields are gone.
你可以你们捶胸痛哭，因为美好的田地已经没有了。
The vines are not producing grapes. The land is overgrown with thorns and briars.
因为葡萄树上再没有果实，然后它的地上长满了荆棘和棘藜。
All the houses of merriment in Jerusalem are going to be crying.
所有的那些在耶路撒冷欢乐的、充满欢乐的那些房子里，都会有哭泣声。
Jerusalem was known as a place of revelry.
那耶路撒冷呢，是一个那种就是享乐、欢乐的这种城。
Is there a place in your town where you go to have a good time?
在你的居住地方，是不是有个地方你可以到那儿去消遣放松？
It's one big party all the time.
那里是24小时都可以开 party 的地方。
In New Orleans, it's called the French Quarter.
在新奥尔良，它是叫 French Quarter 这个地方，它是法国，当时是法国人建的一个地方。
In London, it's Soho.
在伦敦，它是叫做 SOHO。
In New York City, it's Broadway.
在纽约城市百老汇 Broadway。
Every city has a place where everybody goes to party.
每个城市都有一个地方，就是人们可以到那儿去狂欢。
And Jerusalem was, like all big cities, a party place.
耶路撒冷像那些大的城市一样，就是一个狂欢的城市。
All the party houses are going to be shut down.
所有的那些排队的这个场所都会关门。
The noisy city is going to be deserted.
都民的城地被离弃。
The watchtowers are going to be a wasteland forever.
山岗望楼有为洞穴。
The city is going to become a favorite place of donkeys.
那这样这个城市呢，就会变成一个动物们喜欢的地方。
Flocks of sheep are going to be wandering through the ruins.
那些羊群呢，就会在那些废墟的那个地方吃草。
And it's going to be like that until the Spirit is poured out on the people from on high.
这个场景一直要到圣灵从上浇灌我们。
And the Spirit was poured out on the day of Pentecost.
就像那个圣灵在五旬节那天降临是一样的。
So complacent women, you better be careful.
所以那些感觉安逸的妇人们，你们要小心。
You better heed the warning and try to change your habits.
你已经听到了警告，你要改变自己的这些习惯。
Try to get up an hour earlier.
早上早起1个小时。
If you get up an hour earlier, you'll realize you have to go to bed an hour earlier.
如果你发现你要早起1个小时，你要早睡1个小时。
But I won't be able to watch my favorite TV show.
但这样我就不能看我最喜欢看的电视了。
Remember now, I raised 3 daughters.
你要记着，我养育了3个女儿。
And they never want to go to bed, do they?
我从来都不想去睡觉，是吧？
I don't want to go to bed. I don't need to go to bed. Have you heard your children say that?
我不想去睡觉，我不想去睡觉，我不需要睡觉。你听过那小孩子这么说吗？
You have to beat them with a stick to get them up to the bedroom.
你必须要那个，就像用小棍儿抽打他那样，才可以让他们去到那个房间里睡觉。
Or you can bribe them and say, if you'll go up to your room, I'll bring you an ice cream.
或者是你跟他，或者是你贿赂他们，你说如果你要是去的话，我就给你一个冰激凌吃。
But the idea is you have to teach your children to go to bed.
但是我说的观点就是说，你得教导小孩子去睡觉。
If they have not learned the lesson before they go to university, they will be in trouble.
如果他们在去大学之前还没有学到这样的习惯的话，那他们就会很麻烦。
Many students drop out of school that first semester.
很多学生在第1个学期就退学了，
Because they spend their time in revelry, partying,
因为他们花太多的时间在这种 party 和这种享乐上面、狂欢上面。
they stay up all night partying and sleep in class and learn nothing.
然后他们整晚都在狂欢，上课就睡觉，然后
These complacent women, they need to go to bed an hour earlier and stop partying.
如果是个
And learn what work is all about.
OK, I'm good. 然后要学习什么样的工作。
Sounds like you have children waking up.
Yeah,
And it's,
that's good now.
and it's the number 2 child that is causing the trouble, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
就我那个老二，他刚才撞到头了，哭。
Children are universal, okay?
小孩子都是一样的。
God made children so cute so we wouldn't kill them every other day.
所以上帝呢把孩子造的这么可爱，就是让我们那个生气的时候不至于把他们杀了。
When the Spirit is poured out from us on high, good times will come back.
圣灵从上面浇灌的时候，我们美好的时光又会来到。
So let's find out what the good times are going to bring, having seen what the bad times are about.
我们已经看到了就是灾难的场景，让我们看一下美好的场景。
Verses 16 to 20, who wants to read? Say amen.
我们读一下16到20节，谁想读的话就说一下阿门。阿门。
Okay, read.
16，那时公平要居在旷野，公义要居在肥田，公义的果效必是平安，公义的效验必是平稳，直到永远。我的百姓必住在平安的居所，安稳的住所，平静的安歇处，但要降冰雹打倒树林，城地全然拆平。你们在各水边撒种牧放牛驴的有福了。阿们。
Don't you love it when justice reigns and rules?
当公平实施的时候，你们是不是都是很高兴？
The first time I remember rejoicing at justice, I was about 8 years old.
还记得我 我第一次就是感觉到公平的时候，非常高兴，因为公平的是我8岁的时候。
My brother was about 3.
我弟弟大概是3岁。
And he was like most 2 and 3-year-olds. He was rebellious.
他就像那些2、3岁的小孩子似的，就像其他2、3岁小孩一样，就不听话。
He had just learned a new word.
他学了一个新的词儿。
The word was no.
这个单词就是不。
Whatever I asked him to do, he said no.
不管我让他做什么，他都说不。
Older sister would say to do something, he'd say no.
我姐如果说一些事情，他也会说不。
Mama would say, do this. He would say no.
如果我妈说去做这个，他也说 no。
When Papa said, do this, he would say, well, but I don't want to.
然后如果我爸爸说，他会说，我不想去这么做。
So he was very rebellious.
所以他当然非常不听话。
I'd asked him to please come in off the front porch.
我让他来到那个前面那个就像那个小门眼下面。
It was time for dinner.
那是早上，那个是晚上吃饭的时候。
And Mama said, get your brother in off the porch. It's time to eat.
然后我妈说让你弟弟过来，就该吃饭了。
So I obeyed.
所以我听话了，我听我妈说的了。
I stopped what I was doing, went out and called him in from the porch.
然后我就停下我手中做的事情，然后去要叫他们过来吃饭。
He said, no.
他说不。
So my older sister was sent out to get it.
所以这次派我姐去叫他们。
Older sisters carry more power than a number 2 child.
你知道老大他的这个影响力就是比老二时候大。
So my little brother told her no also.
但是我弟弟跟我姐说的也是不。
My older sister was not going to fight him.
我姐是不会跟他打的。
She didn't care whether he came to the dinner table or not.
他根本不在乎他来不来吃饭。
So she came back and said, Mama, he won't come.
然后他回来就跟我妈说，妈，他不过来吃。
Mama stopped her cooking what she was doing and said, oh, yes, he will.
然后妈妈正炒菜呢，然后就停下来说，他会来吃的。
And she strapped on her apron a little bit tighter and walked out to the front porch.
然后他把他那个围裙给扎紧了，然后就走到餐厅。
And she said, young man, you come in right now.
他说，你这个小子马上给我过来。
And he said no and ran to the other end of the porch and down the stairs.
他说不，然后他就跑到另外一个屋子上了。
And he tripped on the stairs and had to have 3 stitches in his head when he cut
然
himself.
后他在那个楼梯上跑，然后呢，结果他自己就跌倒了，然后他缝了3针。
He tripped and fell down and had a big cut in his head that took 3 stitches at the doctor's.
然后他摔倒了，所以他那个上面有很大的一个伤口，然后缝了3针。
It hurt and he cried.
那是非常疼的，然后他也哭。
He cried all the way to the doctor.
就是从去看医生的路上一直在哭。
But I confess my older sister and I laughed all the way to the doctor.
但是我要承认，我和我姐这一路都在笑。
Don't you love it when justice is applied?
所以当那个公平当公平被实施的时候，你不是很高兴吗？
When the criminal is arrested for doing bad things?
当犯人因做了坏事被抓起来的时候，
When corruption pays the price?
当腐败也被揭露的时候，
We love justice, don't we?
我们喜欢公义，是不是？
And the righteous will be in the fertile field as well.
公义也是公义会有很多的果效。
When justice is applied and righteousness is what people try to do, there is a result.
当公义实施的时候，当人们都行公义的事情的时候，这里就会有个结果。
Everybody starts to get quiet.
每个人都变得很安静，
And we start to feel more confident.
然后我们会感觉更加有信心。
We all know that there is no justice all the time in this world.
我们知道，在这个世上，经常都是有不公平的事情。
If justice is to be real, there must be justice on the other side of the grave.
如果公平真的存在的话，那一定在坟墓的另一端有公平的存在。
Because justice is not always on the throne.
因为经常在这面我们是看不到不公平的。
But when justice reigns, people live peacefully in their houses.
但是当公平实现的时候，人们在他的居所平安的居住，
They feel secure.
他们感觉到平安，
They can sleep at night.
他们夜晚可以睡得很香甜。
In undisturbed places of rest, people can feel calm and sleep at night.
在平静的安息所，人们感觉到非常的安稳，而且睡眠非常的香甜。
When I was a young boy in 1950,
在1950年，我还是个小孩子的时候，
nobody locked their doors.
没人锁门的，
People left their doors open of their houses.
他们的门是开着的。
That's just how it was. People trusted each other. There was no fear.
其实就是这样，人们是彼此互相信任的，也没有任何所害怕、恐惧的。
In the 1960s, I would travel by hitchhiking.
然后我是在1960年的时候，在 You'll be driving for what?
Hitchhiking. I'll explain it. English word, hitchhiking.
Hiking.
Hitchhiking. A new word.
Hiking.
Yes, a new word.
这是个新词。
If I had to go somewhere, I would walk out to the street.
如果我要去什么地方，我会走过去，
I would hold out my thumb.
然后我会把我的那个大拇指竖起来。
And as cars drove by, one would stop and give me a ride.
他就在路边搭顺风车，
That's called hitchhiking.
这就叫 hitchhiking， 就是搭路边车。
I hitchhiked from Bristol, Tennessee to Asheville, North Carolina, 200 miles.
然后我就搭顺风车从田纳西，到那个北卡，大概是200多英里，差不多会350里。
And hitchhiked from Nashville, Tennessee to Gulfport, Mississippi.
我从那个 Nashville 的田纳西一直到那个密西西比的 Gulfport。
Sometimes you were lucky and got one ride for a long distance.
有的时候你很幸运，就是一个车给你拉很远。
Sometimes the driver said, well, I'm only going so far, and you say, thank you very much.
但是有的时候，有的司机就说我只能开这么远，但是呢，你也说非常的感谢。
And when he let you out of the car, you hold out your thumb again and look for another ride.
然后当你从这个车上下来的时候，又把大拇指在旁边举起来，就是在希望下一个人再给你。
That's called traveling. That's called traveling by hitchhiking.
这个就是搭顺风车。
You met a lot of interesting people.
你会遇到很多非常有趣的人，
They talked about many things that you learned about.
他会讲的很多你可以学的一些事情。
And they were more interested in telling their story than asking your story.
他们更喜欢把他们的故事告诉你，而不是喜欢去问你的事情。
People who stop to pick you up on the road usually want to talk to you.
当人们开始那个就是开始不跟你开玩笑的时候，是想要跟你讲话。
They're not picking you up. Well, it's a conversation that goes both ways.
它是一个，就是对话是两方的。
But the thing is, we don't hitchhike today.
但事情是，今天我们很少有人搭顺风车了，
It's too dangerous.
太危险，
You might get kidnapped.
可能被绑架。
A bad person might pick you up.
就是一个人，就是可能会一个不好的人，他就让你上车。
But back in the 60s, a lot of people traveled by hitchhiking.
但是60年代的时候，很多人都是搭顺风车。
It was just a safer, more secure world than it is today.
那个时候世界，那个时候比今天的这个社会是要更安全一些。
Even when trouble comes, we're all right.
甚至当灾难来临的时候，我们也都是安然无恙。
Even though a hailstorm flattens the forest.
甚至冰雹来打倒了树林，
Even though the city is leveled completely.
甚至城全部被拆平了。
Like Jackson, Mississippi has water problems right now.
就像Jackson 密西西比现在有水的这些问题，
They've had water problems every year when it floods.
当每一年当他们那个有洪水的时候，都会有水这个问题。
To save a few $1,000s when they built the water plant, they built it in a floodplain.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
When they built the water plant, they built it in a floodplain where it floods every year, a low place.
当他们建这个水这个系统的时候，他们是建在了那种湖水区。
Instead of building it above the reservoir or even with the reservoir, they built it below the reservoir.
他们建这个供水系统应该是建在就是那个储水池的上面，或者跟储水池是平行的。他们建的是储水池下面。
And most people learn that water always runs downhill.
我们都知道水是从上往下流的。
And if there's a lot of water runs downhill.
这有很多水的时候，就有很多水从山上流下来。
Most people figure this out by the time they're 12 years old.
但12岁的人他就知道水是从上往下流的。
But they could save a few $1,000s by not having much pipe, building it below and not above.
所以他们就认为这样我们可以省点钱嘛，我们就可以省一些就是管道的钱，这样就不用把它建在高处，建在低处就得了。
If you look at the pictures, lack of water is not the problem.
所以你看这个图的话，缺水不是问题。
The problem is lack of proper management.
主要的是缺少适当的管理。
But no matter what happens, the city can be leveled completely.
不管怎么样，这个城市是完全可以被拆平的。
You are going to be blessed.
但是你却是被祝福的。
You who are not complacent,
你是会被祝福的。
you
你们是这些不是安逸的人。
you who love justice,
你们这些喜欢公平的人，
you will sow your seed by every stream,
会在各水边撒种，
and you will let your cattle and your donkeys range free.
牧放牛驴。
We can be distressed,
我们可以非常痛苦，
we can face trial and tribulation,
我们面临着苦难和试炼，
because we know life has its ups and its downs.
我们知道我们的人生有高山有低谷，
Sometimes we face difficulty,
有的时候我们会面临着一些比较难的事情，
but we know our help comes from the creator of the universe.
但是我们知道我们的帮助是来自于这个创造万物的主，
And all who trust in him will never be put to shame.
但那些相信他的人永远都必不蒙羞，
Because there is life after death.
因为在死亡之后我们会有一个新的生命。
If there were no life after death, there would be no justice, would there?
如果在死亡之后没有另外一个新的生命，那就不可能是有公平，是吧？
So let's look at what chapter 33 has to say.
我们看一下33章讲了什么。
The prophet uses very figurative language.
他用了非常那种就是非常有那种情景的那些话语。
He loved to speak in metaphors.
他就是非常喜欢用一些比喻。
Chapter 33, verses 1 to 6.
33章1到6节，
Who wants to read? Say amen.
谁想读一下说一下？
我来读吧，刚才我掉了线了。
Thank you, Jenny.
好的，
I'm sorry, just now, yeah.
That's all right.
Something wrong with my line.
Okay.
好，感谢主。求主给我恩典。我读以赛亚书33章。祸哉，你这毁灭人的，自己倒不被毁灭；行事诡诈的人，倒不以诡诈待人。你毁灭罢休了，自己必被毁灭。你行完了诡诈，人必以诡诈待你。耶和华，求你施恩于我们，我们等候你。求你每早晨做我们的膀臂，遭难的时候为我们拯救。喧嚷的响声一发，众民奔逃，你一兴起，列国四散。你们所掳的必被敛尽，好像蚂蚱吃尽。 禾家，人要蹦在其上，好像蝗虫一样。耶和华被尊崇，因他居在高处，他以公平公义充满西安。你一生一世必得安稳，有丰盛的救恩，并智慧和知识。你以敬畏耶和华为至宝。阿们。
There is someone who hates people.
这里确实有一些恨别人的人。
The Bible refers to him as Satan, the devil.
那在圣经当中把他们叫做是魔鬼撒旦。
He's a fallen angel.
他是一个坠落的天使。
He wanted to be the #1 leader.
他想要成为老大。
He wanted to be God.
他想要自己成为神。
He tempted Eve and Adam in the garden.
他引诱了亚当和夏娃。
He knows how to deceive people, to trick them.
他知道怎么样欺骗别人，怎么样的是让他们陷入到。
He likes to tell lies.
他喜欢说谎。
Woe to you, O destroyer. He's talking about Satan.
他说你这毁灭人的，他这里指的是撒旦。
And he's talking about people who like to do Satan's work.
他这里讲的是那些人想要做魔鬼撒旦让他们做事情的那些人。
Some people like to build, some people like to destroy.
有些人喜欢建造，有些人喜欢摧毁。
When I was a young boy, I liked to build with blocks.
当我是小孩子的时候，非常喜欢搭积木。
I would build castles.
我会建一个小城堡。
I would use the blocks to build boats, big sailing ships.
然后我会用那个小积木搭一个就是小帆船。
I enjoyed building with the blocks.
我非常喜欢用积木搭东西。
Now you needed to have an imagination to see the boat.
你必须要有想象力才能搭出来这个船。
But I really like to build tall towers.
但我非常最喜欢就是堆那种大的高塔。
I would see how tall I could build it, putting block on block on block. How high could I get the castle?
我是把那个积木一个个搭起来，看我到底能搭多高。
And about the time I had a nice castle built, guess what happened? My little brother would come in and knock it down. And I would knock my brother with my fist.
我就用我的拳头把它给打倒了。
Don't knock my castle down, or I'll knock you down.
我说你别给我这些打翻啊，小心我揍你。
I like to build, he liked to destroy.
我喜欢那个把它给搭起来，我弟弟就喜欢把它给弄翻。
And my wise mother taught him and me a lesson.
我的妈妈就告诉我那个我和他们我俩上了一课。
She said, your job is to build towers for your brother to knock down.
她说你的工作就是那个把这个积木搭起来，然后让弟弟把它给打翻。
But I don't want him to knock it down, Mama, I would say.
但是我会说妈，我不想让他给我打翻。
And she would say, do you like to build?
她说那你喜欢搭吗？
And I would say yes.
我会说是啊，喜欢。
So she says, build another one for him to knock down.
那你再搭一个，然后再让弟弟打吧。
Now that did not sound like good news to me.
对于我来说，我可不喜欢。
But then she talked to my little brother.
然后他跟我弟弟说，
She said, now, Joseph, listen to me carefully.
他说 Joseph， 你要好好的听我说。
Your brother is going to build you a castle that you can knock down.
然后你哥会建一个你可以把它推翻的一个小城堡。
But do not knock it down until he gives you permission to knock it down.
但是你不能把它给推翻，直到你哥让你推翻时才可以。
Don't knock it down till he's ready for you to knock it down.
如果他没有准备好让你把它推翻，就不可以把它推翻。
So we had a happy time after that.
所以从那之后，我们就相处得很好。
If he was good to me, then I would let him knock it down and I'd build another one.
如果我弟弟对我很好的话，我就会让他把这个推翻，然后我再打另外一个。
If he was mean to me all day long, I would refuse to let him knock it down yet.
今天一天对我都很差，我是不会让他打翻的。
So my brother and I learned a lot because we had a wise mama.
所以我和我的弟弟学了很多，因为我们有一个非常有智慧的母亲。
Verse 1 shows us there is a destroyer that's going to cause us trouble.
第一节告诉我们，这里有毁灭人的，会带来很多的这个灾难。
Why does God give him permission to go knock our castles down?
为什么神给了他们这个允许，让他们去把我们的这个城堡给毁灭掉？
It says his time will come.
这里说他的时候会到。
When you stop destroying, you will be destroyed.
你毁灭罢休了，自己必被毁灭。
And when you stop betraying other people, you will be betrayed.
你行完了诡诈，人必以诡诈待你。
That's just how it works.
事情就是这样，
There will be justice.
这里会有公平。
And we just want it quicker than God gives it.
我们总是想要更快的实行这样的公平。
We want justice before we die.
我们想要在我们死之前能看到公平。
We want justice before the bad person dies.
我们想要在这个坏人死之前有公平。
But sometimes justice is not supplied until the other side of the grave.
但很多的时候，公平是到坟墓的另一端才能实现。
So we must depend on God on this side of the grave.
所以在坟墓的这一端，我们要依靠神。
That's why verse 2 says, "O Lord, be gracious to us."
所以第二节他说：“神呐，求施恩于我们。”
We long for justice.
我们一直在等候你。
And because there's not always justice, we long for your strength.
因为这里没有公平，我们真的是等候，我们渴望你的给我们的臂膀。
You need to be our salvation in time of distress.
当我们遭难的时候，会给我们拯救。
Whoever told you come to Jesus and you won't have any more distress has not read this book.
很多人说，如果有的人告诉你说，你来到耶稣面前就不会有苦难，那指定是他没读过这本书。
Somebody once told me they'd love to hear God speak.
有的人跟我说他们喜欢听神的话语。
I said, you really want to hear God speak?
我说真的想要听神的话语吗？
He'll scare the devil out of you.
He will take care of the devil.
He will scare the devil out of you.
他会把你那个魔鬼给吓跑。
Sometimes he speaks in a still small voice.
有的时候他会用非常小声跟你说。
But at other times, it's like thunder.
但有的时候会像雷响声一样。
And people want to run away and hide.
然后人们那个会想要逃跑，然后是奔跑。
It's just like my mama.
就像我的母亲一样。
Sometimes she would say, Sam, please come here.
就是我妈会说 Sam 过来。
She would speak in a still small voice. Please come here.
她用非常小的声音说过来。
Would you please go get my scissors?
可不可以帮我把剪子拿过来？
Would you go get your brother off the front porch, please?
可不可以把你的弟弟给带到这个屋子？
And other times, this is what she would sound like.
但有的时候他的声音会是这样。
If you don't come right now, you'll wish you did.
如果你现在不来的话，你会后悔。
And I'd want to run away.
我就想逃跑。
I knew justice was just around the corner.
我知道这个公平的马上就会来。
When God gets mad, the nations scatter.
当神发怒的时候，众民奔逃，列国四散。
And when the nations scatter, who harvests the plunder?
当列国四散的时候，谁会收割他们那些敛尽的财富呢？
When the nations scatter after, say, a typhoon, who comes in to steal and loot?
你想，假如是台风来了，整个城市都撤走了，谁会来掠夺那些东西？
It's the young criminals, the young locusts. They come in like a swarm of locusts.
就像那些蚂蚱一样、蝗虫一样，那些年轻的那些罪犯，他们是一群的过来。
Distress is a part of life for even believers.
在我们信主的人，在我们人生当中也会有很多压力，
But there is justice
但这里有公平，
on both sides of the grave.
像坟墓的两端都有。
Help is on the way. Let's pray.
让我们祷告。